Hello and welcome to Tip Top Immigration. Today we are going to talk about the most important aspect of your visa application, the cover letter. So please pay careful attention because this can literally make or break your application. This will be a full comprehensive video covering two topics. In the first part, we're going to talk about the contents of the letter, and in the second part, we're going to talk about some of the most common mistakes that we have discovered in cover letters that usually lead to rejection. Before we dive into the contents of the cover letter, I just want to take a moment to reinstate what I said before, which is that cover letters are super important and can be the ultimate distinguisher between a strong and a weak application. We have come across so many cases where we've suggested the client to not proceed with the application because, based on the contents of their application package, we didn't really expect success. However, a lot of the times the client wishes to proceed regardless, and we've been left feeling shocked more times than we like to admit, because quite often these applications get accepted despite the glaring odds. So let's say that we submit 10 such subpar applications, at least 5 to 7 of them end up getting accepted because of the cover letter. I must say though, here at Tip Top Immigration, when the odds of success are lesser than 90%, we do not even accept the case. Alright, let's get started. The first and the most important thing you need to focus on is defining your purpose of the visit. For instance, are you taking a holiday or traveling for business? Perhaps you're seeing family. In any case, you need to clearly explain why you want to visit the country because that is the first thing the visa officer would like to know. Next, they're going to focus on how well you're established in your home country. For instance, they're very interested to know about your source of income and how much you earn, as well as how much you're looking to spend in Canada. All these factors are interlinked and help determine your economic and financial situation. The numbers you report under these categories need to align with each other. For instance, if you say that you're going to spend a large amount of money during your stay, but your income just isn't sufficient to cover that, then it'll raise some red flags, as it becomes harder for the visa officer to believe what you're reporting in your application. You need to be able to show numbers that actually make sense, as well as demonstrate a clear source of income in your cover letter so that it's convenient for the officer to determine your eligibility. And think of it this way, even when you take a vacation within India, don't you do some budgeting beforehand? So, isn't it natural to do the same before you attempt to go overseas? Remember, you don't have a right to a visa. It is a privilege granted to you by the visa officer that allows you to enter a country like Canada, for example. Because it's a privilege, the officers have to analyze your documents really carefully in order to determine whether to let you in the country or not. And that's why it's your responsibility to ensure that you make this process as easy for the officer as you possibly can. And you do that by clearly defining all the required things in your cover letter, including things like your income, its source, how much you want to spend in Canada, and all of that. On top of that, if you're going to visit family and they intend on helping you with your stay, then you need to specify the terms of their assistance, as in, will they be responsible for your accommodation or cover some of your tourism expense? Next, let's talk about your ties, meaning the things in your home country that you are most likely to come back for. This includes assets like your bank accounts, investments, properties, vehicles, etc. If you want to play it safe, you can include a report from a chartered accountant in your visa application. This would show a detailed description of your net worth, and you can refer to that in your cover letter. If you're not going to get a CA report, it's perfectly acceptable for you to explain your net worth in your cover letter. Secondly, you also need to show what family you have in India that you would come back for. It is considered one of the most important factors in terms of your ties to your home country. Moving on, you need to explain why you would want to come back. It could be that you run your own business or have a long-term job, need to care for immediate family, Perhaps you have a kind of lifestyle and social standing that you would not give up for anything else. Really, the idea is to show them, using valid reasons of course, that you have plenty of reasons to come back to India. Let's talk about previous travel history. You need to define where else you've traveled to in the past and the purpose behind those trips, as well as why are you choosing to go to Canada now? Why not a different country? In one of the forms, they do ask if you've ever been refused a visa, Canadian or any other. And if you check that box off, then you better have an explanation about it in your cover letter. It is your responsibility to explain your past circumstances that may have led to that result. And the officer is very much interested to know. You checking that box off puts a big negative on your application. And unless you take the opportunity to explain it in your cover letter and turn it into a positive, you will be at a considerable disadvantage. Okay, last one. Explaining lacking points. If you are aware that your application lacks some important documentation, then it's your responsibility to be ahead of the game and just explain that in the letter. And the idea is to take the negative factor and present it in a way that it looks like a positive thing. Remember, a lot of the times, perception can be everything. I'm going to share an example of a cover letter of one of the clients we had many years ago, as you can see on the screen. Now, I'm not going to lie, this was a bit of a unique situation, and I still remember it to this day. The reason I say that is because this particular client had been refused a travel visa 10 times, as well as they also had a work permit refusal. I'm happy to say that on their fifth try, they sought us and we were able to help them achieve success. As you can see, we have gone into explicit detail with pictures and explanations trying to explain this client's circumstances. The biggest issue this client had was the fact that they didn't have enough liquid cash. So we tried to demonstrate that their business is capital intensive in nature and requires a lot of investment. We showed proof of installing new sheds, purchasing livestock for the farm, etc., just to show that the reason there isn't enough cash on hand is because it's invested into the business on a continuous basis. So you see, explaining all this in a cover letter is just so much better than submitting an application with, say, insufficient funds. Here's another example of why this works. This client on the screen had 2 refusals before they came to us. All we did for them was create a really detailed cover letter with all the necessary explanations, and we got their application accepted. It hadn't even been a whole month after their second refusal when we sent our application, and boom, that's all it took, a great cover letter. Alright folks, it's time to talk about some of the most common cover letter mistakes that lead to refusals, or simply things that make a cover letter lose value. Before we start, I just wanted to touch base on this one thing real quick. If you've ever had your visa refused, then it's super important that you acquire your CAPES notes from the embassy before you reapply. This document outlines the specific reasons that lead the officer to reject your application. Keep in mind, this document is different than a refusal letter because refusal letters are very generic in nature and they're the same for anyone. CAPES notes are based on your particular application and define the problems that caused the refusal. Once you know what went wrong, you can work on it and reapply, and it significantly increases your chances of success. If you're looking to get your CAPES notes, please head to our website at canadarefuse.com. Link is in description, where you can easily place an order within minutes and receive your CAPES notes in 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, back to the topic, mistakes. First up, unnecessary content. A lot of the time, people include things like their name, address, passport information, etc. in their cover letter. However, the officer already has all of this information, so it's really a moot point to take up space in the letter with this arbitrary information. We've also seen cases where people would literally dump their entire travel plan in their cover letter. Like they'd say something like, oh, I'm going to CN Tower, Niagara Falls, etc. But that's really not required. You can literally attach a proper travel plan to your application and then just refer to that in the cover letter by saying something like, please find attached my detailed travel itinerary. Another thing that we've seen happen quite often is the fact that people sometimes use just absolutely irrelevant information. The visa officer could not care less if you think that Canada is a really beautiful or amazing country. Like, that just does not help your application in any way. The idea is that you have to make the most out of the limited real estate that you have on the cover letter. So you have to be really strategic about what you include in it. Next up, never use a general cover letter that's been used by others before. A lot of the times, people will take a generic letter, switch the names, and slap it on their application. We know that a lot of the times, the generic letters can apply to a lot of the people. However, things like income are just so unique to each person that if your cover letter doesn't have this information that's tailored to your situation, then it's just not going to make an impact. Remember, remember, these officers have been doing this for a long time. They can tell when a letter is genuine as opposed to one that's just been recycled across thousands of other applications. They need to be able to feel that you're making conversation with them through your letter by explaining your situation in your own words. Building off of that, we also see the tendency of people to over explain their situation. This can be actually detrimental to your application because it's easy for the officer to lose interest if the document is too long. They normally don't spend more than 2 to 3 minutes on a letter. And so, if you make it hard for them to read it fast, then you're just hurting your own case. For example, bad grammar is easily identifiable and can cause the officer to just put your application away and not even bother reading it. You have to be able to figure out how to put your best foot forward using very few words. A concise document with immaculate grammar is going to really impact your application positively. If you need help with your application or cover letter, feel free to visit us in our office or reach out to us. We really do put our heart and soul in presenting great cover letters and also help produce detailed travel plans and other documents that you may need for your application. We also have lots of other videos on our YouTube channel explaining several different processes that go into a visa application. I really hope this content was useful to you and that you liked the video. Thanks for watching!